Make a start.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. Day 3.
So today we have called awareness, consciousness, beyond the word. I think we've mentioned it over the few days that what we're pointing to is beyond the form, beyond the words. And we do our best to put into words, to guide and to point. And I think over the few days when people have shared, people have often said, I'm finding it hard to put it into words. I kind of feel different. And that's what we were going to speak to today. And the first section we've called A Whole New World. And the reason I came up with that was because after the 3 days I spent in London learning about this, I saw a completely different world to the world I'd lived in before. And I often thank, there's a man called Dean Rees-Evans and his brother Blair Fraser, who in the early days of me coming across this, they were always doing potlucks and meet-up groups, and had a group in Colchester. And I described it as they helped me navigate this new world that I'd kind of found myself in. And I was really, really grateful for that, because it would have been very easy to forget the message, given how the media, mainstream psychology, so much of what we're fed is almost the opposite of what this message is. And even the fact that when we wake up, we open our eyes, we look out, we see self and other, we see duality. And I think it's nice, just in the early days of kind of learning about this, having that community around you to remind you. Because I know that I would kind of get lost in my head in the week and then go to the meetup on the Sunday and be like, oh God, yeah, it's so simple again. But it really is like seeing a completely different world. And then you have to, you learn to navigate that, and you learn, your relationships start to change. And I had to navigate new relationships, and it was a really interesting time. So we thought we'd speak a little bit about that this morning. I don't know if you want to say something about those titles, what they mean to you.
Yeah. When we talk about a whole new world, I want to talk a bit today about something that's become really apparent to me. I know Kim and I, when I first came across this, Kim was one of the first 3 principles people I got to spend time with as well, and I love that girl. She's awesome. Kim and I have had beautiful discussions about this point. I think it's a really important point to wake up to. I don't know how you want to start this or what, but I want people to get a sense of something that they're capable of. It's not often, I understand why it's not so much spoken about in 3 principles communities, because I feel like it's not the most important thing. Okay, it's not the most important thing to talk about. But I want to talk about it anyway. The most important thing I think that we can come to know is ourself. And when I'm talking about come to know ourselves, I don't mean the story of who we think we are, all the things we think we stand for, all our morals, all our self-righteousness, all our beliefs. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about our namesake, our age, our sex, our gender. The fact that we're in physical human form. The most important thing. There's a quote in the Lost Chapters of Thomas that says, but if you do not know yourself, you dwell in poverty. But it is you that is that poverty. As people start to find themselves, they find love. the riches of love, understanding, as they start to realize they are the source of life, the source of existence. They are the source of their existence. They're not a victim of this world. They're not a victim of creation. They are creator. They are the creator. You create the being you become, and you do it via thought. If you're suffering depression, anxiety, worry, any of those things, it is coming from the conscious state that you are, the way you are perceiving a moment, and you are perceiving it via thought. You are creating the very suffering that we blame on the world. We create it. The world can't create any emotional feeling state. No circumstance. You know, I know people who won the lottery. I don't know people who won the lottery, but I've heard of people who've won the lottery who they've won millions of pounds. Brilliant. Excellent. Then they've committed suicide 2 years later. The money didn't make them happy. I know of people who've gone for jobs and they've got these jobs thinking it's going to be the best thing for them. I'm one of these people. 6 months later, I quit. I was well paid. No, can't do this anymore. The job wouldn't bring me satisfaction. So I blamed the job and I left. There's been partners in my life where I've left them because I felt dissatisfied with the relationship. I didn't realize the relationship was coming from me. I thought it was coming from them. No, I'm creating the relationship I experience with the individual. I create all of it. My entire reality is a manifestation from within my being. This is the secret of life. The dream state. This is the most important thing to wake up to. Wake up to not what is being created, but the fact that you are creating it. All the time. Right now, you are creating a reality. This doesn't go anywhere. You create it in your sleep. It's called dreams. It's called dreams. You create realities as real as this. And when you wake up, you think, oh no, this is reality. Oh, that was just a dream. No, we don't have two modalities of working. It's still thought within consciousness creating a reality for us in the moment. There isn't two modalities of working. The thing that creates the dream state in our sleep is the thing that's creating the dream state of the awake state. The only thing is the senses are enlivened. So we assume it's more real. We assume that the way we feel is more real. No, that's coming from thought too. This is what we really want people to wake up to. But I also really want to talk a bit about magic. Jen says, you always look so disinterested. You're always fiddling with something, fiddling with a pen. I just dropped it. No, I'm listening. When I fiddle and I listen. And I've got, some people call a resting bitch face sometimes when I'm listening. When I first had my experience of coming across the principles and the experience before coming across the principles, I was aware very much that the power that we are is capable of things that en masse humanity is not aware of yet. As is kind of, I can't even say the word explained, but how it appeared to me in the moment of realization, humanity is not evolved enough yet en masse consciously to utilize the power of consciousness wisely. There are gifts within consciousness, within thought, that we're not aware of. And I want to talk about it because I want people to get a sense of the vastness that they are and the infinite potential that they are. When we say infinite potential, we go infinite potential. Yeah, I know what that is. You cannot know infinite potential. You can't know it. If you think you know infinite potential, you've condensed infinite potential down to a thought. You can't know infinite potential, but we are all infinite potential. And within infinite potential is the infinite vastness of all things and all possibilities. I've got a friend who is angry at the moment about the COVID situation, livid. I don't call them conspiracy theories because I don't know. I call them alternative points of view, alternative to the mainstream media. And I was speaking to this individual and I was saying to them, you know, you're so angry. She's livid. I'm livid. Can't believe this is happening. And I was trying to explain to her what I'd kind of come to be aware of. What Hinduism and Buddhism and Sydney Banks spoke to, that I've become aware of, listening to other people. I'm sure it's in every single religion somewhere in the teachings. And this is stop trying to change the world, change yourself and the world will change. Now this individual is livid, angry, frustrated. And I said to her, I said, this is what you are contributing to the world. To the consciousness of humanity, you are contributing anger, hatred, judgment, separation. You're creating the idea that there are evil people. This is what you are bringing to the world. This is what you are bringing to this mass state of being. Sydney Banks said, I'm as much use tending to my garden as I am giving a talk to 100 people. I'm as much use to the world tending to my garden as I am giving a talk to 100 people. He knew fine well that him being in a good state of being affects the whole. It radiates out or radiates in, whichever way you want to describe it, radiates into consciousness, the collective consciousness. And I was explaining this to this individual and I said, have you, just put your hands up if you've heard of this, the 100 monkey effect. Colette, Claire, Mary, Mima, Kelly. Right, there's probably other Mackie, probably a couple of others on the other screen I haven't seen yet. Flick, cool. This was something that was witnessed in Japan, and it was based on macaque monkeys. And macaque monkeys love sweet potatoes, and every day the scientists go down and they just throw sweet potatoes out for the monkeys into the sand, and the monkeys come along and they pick up their sweet potato. And they love the sweet potatoes, but they hate the sand, so they're always trying to get the sand off it. And then one day, the scientists saw one of the young baby monkeys pick up the sweet potato, walk down to the water and wash its sweet potato. And its mate saw it, so it went, oh, it washed its sweet potato. Within a couple of days, 3 or 4 monkeys were now washing their sweet potatoes. And within a few more days, some of the adults, had seen these younger monkeys washing their sweet potatoes. And so they started to wash their sweet potatoes. And then at some point, the washing of sweet potatoes by the macaque monkeys reached a critical mass, as it was described, a critical mass. And then all at once, across all the archipelago, these monkeys were all over islands of Japan. all at once, the monkeys started to wash their sweet potatoes on all these different islands that couldn't communicate audibly. And even onto the mainland of Japan, the monkeys all started to wash their sweet potatoes all at once. It reached a critical mass within consciousness of the species, and they all became aware of this new capacity, this new idea, very, very quickly. And so they realized this was something that takes place within consciousness. And the study of this, now I don't want to go too far down the scientific name of it, but the study is called noetics, the science of this mass collective consciousness that is capable of communication between itself and affecting the whole, is called noetics, noetic sciences, which kind of gives it the reason why I don't want to get too caught up in that is because I want people to realize we tend to separate science and spirit. No, this is just an observation of spirit, which is given the scientific name noetics. Okay, it's not a separate thing to the whole. This is just an observation of what is going on in life. And then after I was showing this lady this video, and then afterwards it rolled on so beautifully to another video that said, after we realized this with monkeys, we tried it with humans. So what they did was they created this picture with 100 faces in it, faces within faces within faces within faces. And they asked groups of people to come through, how many faces can you see? And they were getting like 7, 8, 9 faces. And then they flew to the UK. This was an experiment done in Australia. They flew to the UK, the other side of the planet, and they held this picture up on a BBC, a small-time BBC programme, and they pointed out every single face. So everybody who was watching it in the UK knew where all the faces were. They just sat there and watched that. All the faces are. They rung up Australia there and then and said, right, we've just done the experiment, get the next group of people in. And they didn't give actual figures, they said, but the numbers of faces throughout the groups massively rose. That could actually be seen. Suddenly they went from 7, 8 to greater numbers. And I don't know if they said the numbers or if I've missed it or what, but the numbers rose that they could see just because people in the UK had become aware of it. It had an effect right the way around to the other side of the planet. I was listening to a talk last night. It's a book we've been listening to. And this scientist hates woo-woo. I hate woo-woo, they were saying. I hate woo-woo. And they got involved in this woo-woo thing of people focusing thoughts. And they put them into groups of 8. And they asked them to concentrate their thoughts on people, this individual with a pain or an illness healing. These 8 people, they concentrated on these. They each had a different person. Each group had a different person to concentrate on. And at the end of the week, they brought these people back in who had illnesses. And she said, I had to sit there. She said, I could not believe it. I do not believe in woo-woo. She said, but I couldn't explain this rationally. Every single person who came in with an illness to be healed was healed. And she said some of them were just minor aches and pains they'd gone, but some of them were some pretty serious illnesses. But every single one came in and said, I'm healed. And she couldn't rationally explain it. When I look at my life, I have been so clumsy with my thought. I have been so lazy with my mind. I still can be lazy with my mind. The mind creates reality. It affects matter. To the double slit experiment that we spoke about on the first day. What did we speak about on the first day?
I think so, yeah.
I was on the community group. No, I was on community group. Anybody, I won't talk about it because I'm pretty crap at talking about it, but please look up the double slit experiment. Quantum theory. Look it up. You will see how mind and consciousness, they affect the material world. The material world is literally a manifestation of consciousness. The world we see, and this is why I call consciousness the ultimate democracy, is a reflection of the mass belief of humanity at the moment. I personally don't think it is a mistake that the scientists had it predicted, the idea of what the climate change would look like and global warming and rising temperatures, and according to the mathematics, and they put it into the computers, they came up with X scale, but only to find that as humanity started to focus its attention on climate change, it started to happen quicker. I don't think that's a mistake.
I was just going to say as well, the study, I think Mary said it's called the Power of Eight. It's Lynn McTaggart. And the reason she did those groups is because they had done like bigger groups where they were like big groups of people collectively setting their intention to raise peace and compassion in communities and to lower violence. And apparently it completely changed these communities, and the violence and the levels of crime and things went down over a longer period of time, not just when they were doing the intentions. So that's what got her interested, I think, in doing the other workshops. And now she's got all kinds of books, so she's not at all like a skeptic of it all anymore. No. She's fascinated by it, but she's got many books. And I think I tried to read The Field, and it was quite scientific, and I struggled with it. But she's trying to point to this. It's almost like a scientific way of talking about consciousness, awareness, this one force that a couple of people had asked. So that it was Lynn McTaggart, and so I think you can look up the research and stuff on that.
And there's plenty of it. Noetic science. That's tons on noetic science.
And also I know Roger Mills, who used to do the community work, he just said if he was in a community, he said he only really needed to get about 20% of the community interested and on board and understanding this for the whole community to start to change. And he called it the ripple effect, but he said it's almost like you had to get to a tipping point of enough people raising their level of consciousness, their level of awareness, for the community to then change. So he said it seemed like a much easier task to get 20% of a community rather than trying to physically get to everyone. So there's a lot, even though it's not spoken about within the principles, it's been seen with the community work that's happened, how a small group of people changing like alters the whole, like within a family and then the wider community.
Yeah, I'm gonna say an opinion, very much my opinion, but the news doesn't give people good news. The news is continuously giving people negative, the world's going to shit news. This is the mass state of consciousness that the majority of people are living in. This is why there's so much suffering in the world. People see what they believe. We all see what we believe. If we believe the world's going to shit, we will find evidence for it everywhere. We all know these people. I love your gran. I've never got to meet her, but you tell me about her.
It was in the later years of her life when she'd started to get Alzheimer's. You'd say, "Good morning, Nan," and she'd go, "What's good about it?" I think my sister's on that was Nanny Neville.
Oh, bless her, Lala. You know, we know these people who they can't see any beauty or light or life in the world. They just see pain and terror and horrible things. This is not taking place in the world. This is taking place within the mind. The world is ultimately a neutral event. The world doesn't come preloaded with feeling. Everybody perceives it differently. We all perceive the world differently. It's our perception. But one of the things Sydney Banks would say is, the only way we can solve the problems of the world is to raise the consciousness of the planet. raise the consciousness of the people who are on it. As our consciousness shifts, we start to think differently. Old people who come out of addiction, the only thing that's happened is their consciousness has changed. They now think differently. Because they think differently, the addiction appears different. New opportunities present themselves. I find it amazing how if I'm in a shit mood, the whole world conspires to piss me right off. If I'm in a rush, tractors will pull out in front of me. Car won't start. I'll have a flat tire.
It's like every time you try and post something with Hermes, you hate the machines
Every
in
time.
the Hermes shop. It never works.
I hate the Hermes machine, so it never works. Jenny goes in and just sorts it out. You've got far more love for those things than I have. But it's quite interesting when you start to become aware, you can see there is actually a pattern that goes along, a corresponding pattern that goes along with the mindset and the world. I feel this is a really hopeful thing. I mean, I read our mission statement on day one. We do want to see a world of equality where people are all valued and all living beings are valued. Where everybody takes precedence over the minority. We all play our part in it. We're not powerless over the world. We are powerful beyond belief. You truly believe in something, it will happen for you. I truly believed I was going to go and work in prisons. And one day I just sat back and I said, please send me somebody to get into work in prisons. The prisons aren't getting back to me. Nobody was talking about the principles in the UK at this point, in the UK prison systems. Nobody was talking about it. I couldn't even join on to anything. Jacqueline Hallows wasn't up and running yet. There was nobody doing it. And then one day I asked for this. I said, please send me somebody to get me into working in prisons. And 10 days later, a lady turned up lost at my drive gates. And I said, where are you going? She said, I'm trying to get to the Gateway Inn. I said, you're on the wrong road. Jump in my van, I'll give you a lift. As we're driving up, she said, I feel so stupid. She said, I should have got off the train in Kendal, but I've stopped on too many stops. I don't know why. I feel so stupid. Should have got off in Kendal. I said, it doesn't matter. I'll give you a lift. Then on the way up the hill, driving towards the Gateway Inn, little voice came in my head and said, ask what she does for a living. I said, what do you do for a living? She said, I've just taken a managerial role with a charity that works with the well-being of offenders. I said, I knew it. She said, what do you mean you knew it? I said, I need to buy you a drink. We need to have a talk. Bought her a drink, sat down, had a chat. She said, I want you working with me. I got to go into prisons. You know, I've got so many stories of that. Kim and I were, I was just thinking about the J actually. Kim and I were at one of Rudy and Jenny's retreats, and we were with a lad called Johnny, and we were talking about a J. I love J's. That's why our freedom thinking signs all J birds. They're special to me. I love them. For no other reason than we just love them. We love J's. They're special to us. And one day, Kim and I were talking to Johnny about, I asked, because when I came across this initially, I used to ask for things because I couldn't believe it would take place. And I said, go on, send me a J feather then. If I find a J feather, then I'll truly believe. And a little while later, not long later, a little J feather turned up for me, and I've still got it.
It was leaning on a tree, wasn't it?
Leaning on a tree. I was just about to fell, yeah. So what's that? Just propped up against the bottom of the tree. I was telling Johnny about this with Kim, and we jumped in Kim's car to leave, and you were taking us to the train station. And we hadn't driven 20 metres when this J flew down in front of us, and it flew just above the bonnet. Do you remember this, Kim? And it flew, the drive must be half a mile long. It flew in front of the car, right above the bonnet. I was like, that's a J, Johnny. This is a J right here. Look at it. It's spectacular. It's beautiful. And it flew to the end of the road, and it flew up and left the way we were going, and we caught it up, and eventually it just flew off. And it was like, there you go, Johnny, there's your Jay. And there was a time, I mean, I could come up with countless times. The thing is, I very rarely need to ask for things. I very rarely need to use this, because on the whole, I'm pretty content with life. And I think that's the important part. It's first and foremost, we must find the contentment within life for ourselves. Because the majority of the reasons why, majority of the time when we're asking for things, it's so that we feel better. We must learn that all experience is illusory. We must learn this point. We must realize that all experience is born within the mind. The reality we experience, whether it be the darkest depression or the highest of highs, it's all the same thing. It's just showing up different.
I was just going to read the comments. It's like Vicky said, I must have known you were going to talk about Jays. I was rereading about them just as I came online. And then Flick said, I've been getting so much of this, so much of that over the last few weeks, asking to see numbers, asking to help to launch a social enterprise. 3 people came across my path in the last 2 weeks who can help, and more. Amazing. Test it.
Yeah. Yeah. If we really want to bring around a change in this world, we have to change ourselves. It's that simple. And the beauty of that is you get to live in the joy of your self-change. You get to live a beautiful life. It doesn't mean it won't come with its challenges. Come with its challenges. But each one of its challenges is a new opportunity to grow deeper and deeper and deeper in knowing. Yeah, when we talk about a whole new world, we're talking about something so massive. We're just at the cusp of it. The world is changing. When I first came across this, there was nobody in the north. This was only 8 years ago. There was
That you knew of.
That I knew of. There was next to nobody in the north. There was nobody in Cumbria that I knew of, apart from me and Sue. Now there are countless people who are coming across this. The people are looking in this direction. Consciousness is changing within the world. People are more interested in what is this stuff that's truly going on. They're not bought into the material quite as much. The materialist worldview. More and more people that I would never expect are coming and going, Dave, what's this you talk about? Or, Dave, look what I found. I found this. What do you think about this? This is all happening because more and more people are starting to look in this direction, which means that this is going to just take off very, very quickly.
I think the other thing that so many people say when they come across this, the amount of synchronicities and meetings, and you're just about to call someone and then they call you, like it seems that when we wake up to this, it seems to just manifest in our life more. And I think you can see how whatever we believe to be possible, we see. So if we start recognizing that we are connected to, we're not even connected to, we are this infinite potential. Who knows what's possible? And I think I was speaking about it yesterday. I could see how many lids on things I've put. Oh, that wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't be able to do that. And they've done an experiment, I think it was with fleas, where they put them in a jar with a lid, so they could only jump this high. And then even when they removed the lid, the fleas only jumped that high. And I think our lid is our belief, what we think is possible for us. And, you know, that 3 days I attended, what I would have said was possible for me was, you know, I was just thinking, I just need to like get married and have someone look after me. I didn't think I'd be able to have a job like that where I'd interact with people. I needed to either find a job where I didn't have to talk to people, and I had so many things which I was so scared of life, and I felt so limited. Then over that 3 days, it was just like, wow, what's possible? So suddenly being able to speak to people on a one-to-one basis, and then to be able to do all all the limits of what I believe. I think someone just unmuted. And I think I keep seeing again and again, like it seems like I'm aware of this unlimited potential, and then I'll see how I've had all this invisible thought that's created a lid on what's possible. And like you were saying about the environment and things, it's like, wow, like what is it? So we have been, well, not necessarily even prayer, but just putting into our attention on love. Being grateful. Like, it's so funny, often when people do this, they look up. I don't know what we're looking up into.
Vastness.
Sometimes we do it when we're under the stars, just, oh, thank you so much. And I think for a long time, the principles like expanded me and opened me up. And then I created this set of rules about what it meant to teach the principles. What I was and wasn't allowed to say, what I could and couldn't talk about. Like I suddenly, like Sid's message was freedom. Sid's message was like, wow, we're scratching the surface of something here that's so incredible, amazing. And then suddenly I put all these rules on it. And I created like a form to it that I had to stick to. And I didn't see it for a long time, but when it started to fall away, I realized how limited I'd made it, because I thought someone else knew better than me, or I thought that they were saying to me that I shouldn't talk about this. But really, we've had conversations, and Dave would say to me, what was there when you first woke up to this? And I said, the thing that really struck me was that there's nothing ever to worry about. And there was no fear there. There was just pure potential and love. And then innocently, I created all these ideas, which then it made it feel restrictive. So whenever I speak to people about the principles now, I say, if at any point you're hearing from me that you should or you shouldn't do that, or if you start to feel restricted by this, that's going to be either your personal opinion or me not doing a very good job in sharing, because this isn't about restriction. This isn't about shoulds and shouldn'ts. This is about the infinite freedom. And when we connect to that, and I know for myself and Rudy, when we did the Three Principles movie site, there were some people who'd been around the principles a long time who didn't think we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't create it. We shouldn't make the movies. Like, they didn't know who we were. And they just said it was a bad idea, and the 3PGC was going to do it. But there was some sort of deeper voice in both of us that knew we needed to do it. And we did it anyway. And it was one of the best experiences, getting to go into the prison systems and getting to go to the homeless shelters. We got to meet some of the most incredible teachers around the world through doing it. And then the reach of the movies was incredible. We'd get messages from like the Bahamas or just where was it, Bermuda, and we were like, how are people finding this? They just found the videos on YouTube, and it spread. And now when I look around, I'm like, there's a webinar or something to do with the principles happening pretty much every day.
All day.
Definitely. There's so much content now.
At some part of the day.
But back then there was no online videos. Like with the movie site, initially we were doing teleconferences. I don't think video conferencing was really a big thing when we started. And now it's kind of everywhere. But I just want people to know that this is about freedom to express and share from you. And I know I've been guilty of sometimes, when I used to do the facilitator training, having an idea of how people should share, because this is so amazing and it's so simple, share like this. But now I just want to tell people, share like you, share what makes sense to you. There isn't a limit, there isn't a way. The three principles aren't a way. They're a description of what's already true. And being the truth of that, and it will reveal itself and the way that it unfolds for us. But I think I stopped talking about the synchronicities. I stopped talking about the magic, because I thought that wasn't in line with the message, the three principles. I didn't realize, no, you've just created a construct of what you think the three principles are, and now you're coming up against that.
Creating a limitation.
Yeah.
Putting a lid on top of your fleas. Yeah, don't put a lid on top of your fleas. Let them jump.
Well, having seen the flea, Rusty normally gets like one flea, doesn't he?
Yeah, and you know he's got it because it kind of weighs him down. You know, he knows he's got a flea in him because he kind of takes up half his body, doesn't it?
Well, also he's got really short white hair, so you see it. But how high they can actually like jump, I'm like, wow, they managed to limit them to that. And that's what we do to ourselves. But it is, Sid often says, one thought thick. Or one thought from happiness, or one thought from sadness. A belief is one thought thick.
Mm.
And if we can start to see through them.
You know, nobody questions that stress can create illness. Nobody questions that. That's fairly standard knowledge. But lots of people question, oh, well, can we think ourselves well? Well, logically, of course we can. If stress can create illness, stress can kill you. What is stress? Stress is a ball of thoughts. Stress is just a bunch of thoughts. Thought can kill you. It can make you ill. Surely it would stand to reason that then thought can heal. A change in thought can bring around a corresponding change in the physiology. I've experienced it when I was going through my hard time. But, sorry, Kim. When I was going through my hard time, sorry, sweetheart. Did you want to say something? You've got your hand raised. My apologies.
2 hands raised.
2 hands raised. Kim, we'll come straight to you now, love.
I just wanted to confirm the magical experiences, because we had a lot of spiritual conversations and what some people would go, you're not us, but we were really able to kind of be really free and talk about all the different mystical things in the world and be really okay and happy and just explore it. But when you said magic, this tiny, tiny little feather, white feather, landed on my lap while you started talking. And it just kind of just really reminded me of how we started off, and the birds and the feathers and all these mystical things. Because I found Sid from a mystical way. You know, I didn't know about Jenny and Rudy or anybody. I had no idea what the principles were, who they were. And I found him because my mum kept saying to me, you're going to need to take a leap of faith. And I don't know why, but I know I just keep needing to say that to you. And I was like, right, okay. And when I found Sid, I found a little tiny link. And I'd also had the name Sid as part of a password for years, because mediums kept saying to me, look out for the man called Sid. It's going to be really important to you. And I was like, who's this Sid? Do you know what I mean? So in the end, it was said so much, I thought I'll put it in as a password. And I did. And then the day came along that I was looking on an NLP site because I was going to start working for myself after being very disillusioned by a big organisation. And I was kind of like, oh, and then there was this name, Sydney Banks. So I pressed on that name because everything inside me was going, press that button. And I found Sid. And within a minute, I knew that he was talking truth. And I understood. And I was just like, oh my God, this is it. Do you know what I mean? And I just, all of a sudden, all of my worlds, all the different way and you know, things that I'm looking at all came into one. And I knew that he was talking truth. So for me, it's just that life is mystical and magical, but we forget that because we're told, oh, that's not logic, or that's not common sense, or that can't be true. But how do we know? There's so much to know, isn't there? We know nothing. Anyway, just thought I'd confirm the white feather for you. That was just like, hey, thank you. Lots of love.
Thanks, Kim. Loads of love to you, love. Mrs. Calvert.
I just wanted to say about the physical stuff. I used to get bronchitis, 3-4 times a year. And I'd be in bed for 2 or 3 days and then take another fortnight to get over it. And this happened so regularly that I never bothered the doctor or anything. I just get over it eventually in a fortnight. But this particular day, I noticed it was happening again. I used to get a tightness around my back and, you know, I knew the symptoms. And I was lying in bed and I thought, oh, I've got bronchitis coming again. And then all the stuff coming in, fortnight, ill, blah, blah, blah. And then I suddenly noticed that I was so comfortable, snuggled down in the bed. I thought, oh, I'm going to really enjoy this. I'm going to snuggle down in bed and I'm staying here for a whole fortnight, not having to get up, not having to do anything. This is great. I'm really going to enjoy this bronchitis for the first time. 2 days later, I was fine. The whole lot had just cleared, just like that. It was like it never happened.
You loved it.
Just because I was going to enjoy it. And that's not the only occasion. I mean, the most spectacular occasion for me of knowing was when I went into our local Tesco and I was told to put to go on to the lottery. I never do the lottery. But I did as I was told, and I put my numbers down. I didn't even know how many numbers to pick or anything. I wasn't that, but I knew I was going to win. And I came home and I had the next 3 days were complete panic. What I was going to do with the money, what it meant, all this money stuff that I didn't know was there came up. And I was absolutely dreading going back and finding that I'd won. And I had won £10. And I thought, yeah, I knew I'd won, but I didn't know how much. But that was amazing. I mean, I was so sure that I'd won that it created all of this turmoil. So when you were talking about people winning the lottery and then committing suicide, I can understand why. You know, it was amazing.
We must find ourselves first.
Definitely. I've been waiting for it to happen again now. I've dealt with it.
I'm ready for it now.
And what's more, I know it probably never will, because that wasn't the point. The point was that I didn't know all of this stuff was there to deal with until I did.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Anyway, I've said my bit.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah. New way of seeing the world. New way of seeing this world. We're talking about something so vast. Humanity is a mystery to itself. But it doesn't look at its own mystery. It thinks it knows. It thinks it knows. We think we know something about humanity. Oh, we started off in Africa. Did we? No, it's a theory. It's like the theory of the Big Bang and the theory of evolution. There is a word in there. It's called the theory, and yet we take it as gospel and truth and fact. But each person who uncovered whatever they uncovered to come to realize, they always put the word it's a theory, and then we get taught it as fact. We take it on board as fact. No, it's always been a theory. This is always going to be a mystery. The mystery is infinite. You know, evolution cannot take place without a change in energy. It's impossible. There needs to be a change in energy to create a corresponding change in the physical, because the physical is made of energy. Keep looking at the physical, we keep looking at the physical, we keep looking at the physical, become aware of what creates. If you ever really become aware of it, you'll know you cannot know it. Give up. It's interesting. The moment you give up, Kel, the moment you give up, I give up. Buddha found his enlightenment the moment he quit. Fuck this shit. That's exactly what Buddha said. I'm going to go down to McDonald's. He woke up. The moment he stopped trying. The moment you stop trying. You can't make yourself stop trying. You can't think your mind to quiet. At some point, we just get quiet. And you cannot notice that you're quiet. That's a thought, noticing. At some point, it just happens. And you find this impossibly beautiful space. But as I often say, people who realize God, they say they've realized God, found God. Where do people find God? They always find it within themselves. It is always an experience. Where does experience take place? From within. That's why Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is both inside of you and outside of you. God's kingdom is both inside of you and outside of you. What you do on the inside has an effect on the outside. Learn to use it wisely. Become aware of it. Notice it. Try it. Test it. Go for it. Test it. Don't be scared. You can't be hurt. You can't be damaged. Where is God's kingdom? God's kingdom is all over the face of the earth, but mankind does not see it. Now we see creation. We see the form it's taken. We see the trees, the mountains, the oceans, the people, the cars, the pylons, the whatever. We see creation and we see separateness. We see labels. Thoughts. These are thoughts. We see thoughts. Go before the thoughts. Then what do you see? If you were to see a world without labels, what are you looking at? If you were to see a world without the judgment of right, wrong, good, bad, true, false, blah, 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 what are you truly looking at? Because that's closer to the truth. People, partners without the judgment, without the labels, without the ideas of who we think we are, who we think they are. Who are they? You see, the whole thing's a game of mind. Even down to the people you meet. You meet a character you create within your own mind of the individual. So you meet. All one thing. It's a divine thing. It's a divine no matter what religion you come from, whether you're religious or not. I remember doing some work with a charity called Active Change in London. And I was talking to this beautiful Muslim woman. And she said, Dave, everyone prays to the same God and then argues about it. remember that being one of the truest statements I'd ever heard. We all fight over the same thing. What the fuck are we doing? Wake up. We must wake up. Prayer is something that has completely, en masse, left the Western culture. Because it could never be quantified, weighed, measured, or taxed. Perhaps it could be taxed. I suppose that's why a lot of the churches are floated on the stock exchange, stock market. Perhaps it could be taxed. But prayer became a thing that the Western human being, especially the white, stopped doing. The majority.
I was good. My dad used to be head teacher, and the vicar at his school was Father David, and when he retired he started living out in India for 6 months of the year and was here 6 months of the year. And Rudy and I visited him once, and he'd always pray over his food, and he was telling us a story that he always blesses his food and prays over it and thanks it. And the whole time he's been out in India, at that point he said, I've only ever been ill once. And at that point I think me and Rudy had probably been ill quite a few times and had food poisoning and all kinds of things. And he said, there was one time I was out in a village and I prayed over the food that had been given to me, and he said, and I got this strong sense I shouldn't eat it. And he said, and I did, and I got really sick. But he believed so much that his prayer and gratitude for the food made it safe to eat. And he said, and that was the only time the prayer didn't seem to do anything to it. And he said he got really sick. But I think it's so interesting how a lot of the traditions that we have lost and kind of just don't do anymore, there was a reason for them. Like he was saying, you know, even the fact that you're then telling your body you're about to eat, preparing the digestive tract. Like he just said, there's logic to so many of these things, but we've lost touch with why we did what we did, and they just became kind of ritual. But there's so many beautiful things within a lot of the ritual that we've misunderstood, and they've just become things that we do. Like my dad was saying, he went to a grammar school, and they always prayed at the beginning of and end of meals, but it was just like blah, blah. He said it in Latin, he doesn't even know what it meant. So it's like you can see that it's not the words or what you do, it's the energy or the intention behind it.
Space you come from.
Yeah, and kind of, I know that Gabriella, who shares this in prisons, Maldonado Montano, I think is her second name, she always used to say that whenever she went into work with people, and she did a lot with juvenile hall, so young kids that were in juvenile hall for different reasons, it's my come from, it's where I come from when I'm with them. It doesn't matter so much what I talk about or what I say. So it's where I'm coming from. It's my intention. And she comes from love with everyone she meets. I know there's a few people on here that know Gabriella and have seen her speak. She knows that there's just love at the core of everyone. And that's what she speaks to. And I say she's like an earth angel. It's like she is magical when she walks around. There's just this beauty to her. And she keeps it simple, but she knows that there's so much more to this life than we realize. And this isn't in any way telling people what to do or what not to do. Like it just makes sense to us now to do some of those things. Like it's just occurred to us within our life. But I think Flick said it, like go away and play with it, try it out. What makes sense for you? But a bit like Lisa mentioned yesterday, that when her and Ewan had their Mazda Bongo camper van, they saw them everywhere. And then they sold it and suddenly they didn't see them anywhere anymore. Like where we put our attention, we see. What we focus on, we see more of. So I know that I shifted from a world of focusing on what's wrong with myself, what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with life, to wow, I'm alive. what's right with life. And that's where my attention went, and that's what I started to see. And we've got a friend who, she writes books about magic. She's got loads of incredible books, but she said the one thing she couldn't manifest was happiness. And that was when she happened to fall upon Michael Neill and learn about the principles. And she values that understanding in a really deep way, and she doesn't see any separation with what her books previously said, but she just misunderstood it, and the principles kind of put it into a context for her.
Like, who was it who said before? I think it was Kim said it. The totality, the oneness of it all. This one force has infinite potential. You are that one force. We're all that one force. It's just one of it. It can create a universe. It can create our being here. It has done. On earth as it is in heaven. All the powers that exist in heaven exist on earth. On earth as it is in heaven. All the powers that the Creator has, you are that. But up until recently, very few people had actually woken up to this fact. They tried to tell us. We couldn't hear it because we're too busy listening to what we've created about what they were saying. Oh, it means this, it means this. It means this. No, go before that. They were saying, no, go before that creation. Go before what you've created. You can't do that with your thoughts. You can't think your way there. That's creation. Every single thought is a creation. It's an expression of it. It being you. You before you think. You before you dream psychological suffering or worry or anxieties or heartache or pain or judgment, should or shouldn't. You before all of that nonsense. If you just get a slight glimmer of that fact, you realize this truly is a mysterious spiritual existence. Just the slightest glimmer. Just the slightest glimmer will change an individual's life. We can only ever have the slightest glimmers. Some people go a frigging deep in, but even Sydney Banks came back and said, if we were to combine all the consciousness of humanity right now, and he included himself, he said, we're just scratching the surface. It's true. He said, what you think is not reality. What is it? Thought is not reality, but is how your reality is created. Along those lines, I think I paraphrase that.
It's in the missing link, isn't it?
Yeah. Thought is not reality, but it's through thought that your reality is created. What you think is not reality, but it's through that your reality is created. Your dream, your existence, your experience, your life. However you think, you experience as a reality is done unto you as you believe. Be careful what you wish for. I remember one of the first times I kind of I was shown something about this was when I split with my wife, Rach. Hit her like a ton of bricks. Dog shit time. And our friend Anna, I don't think Anna's on today. She gave her a book on angels. And she read this book on angels, and she said, if you want proof, ask for proof. So she asked for a white feather like Kim. And Rach wasn't anything like it. Rach didn't give a shit about anything like this at that time. She was just like, whatever. She read this book, and she said she asked for a white feather. Go on, then show me a white feather. She walked off uptown. She said this white feather just fell in front of my face. Now, I was at work at this time and I didn't know anything about this. I was in Manchester. I think it was 2012. And 2012 was a very cold winter. And we're working along the side of the road and we're on this dual carriageway. And I remember I was in the worst headspace. I was just in such a shit place. I was just stood, actually. I wasn't doing any work. I was just stood, just staring. Completely lost in my own dream. So consumed with my dream. And I remember it was the road was bone dry, covered in salt. There wasn't a scrap of damp on it. It was bone dry. And as I was staring across the road, I watched this white feather fall out of the sky. The fluffiest little down white feather. Beautiful little thing it was. I just watched it just fall out of the sky and land on the road. And then I watched two cars go boom, boom past it. Like, it's still there. Couldn't believe it. It caught my attention. I was like, wow. It's been made of lead. Bloody hell, kind of snapped me out of where I was. And I set off walking back to work, walking back up the road. For some reason, I turned around, I ran across the road, I picked it up and put it in my pocket. Went back to work. And that night I got a phone call off Rach. And she said, Dave, did you find a feather today? I was like, yeah, I did. How did you know about my feather? She said, because I asked for you to receive one too. She said, can I ask you, she said, was it the most beautiful, fluffy little white feather you've ever seen? I said, yeah, I've still got it. I've still got it. This power of mind is this what we are is something that we're only just starting to scratch the surface of. The principles, what the principles are pointing to, the principles are not a psychology. They come before psychology. Psychology is born of the principles. The principles are a description of what is. What is infinite. What is not finite. It doesn't come to an end. None of us come to an end. You come from the light. You are going towards the light. You are the light. Infinity. We're not what we think we are. This world is not what we think it is. Yet it is. It becomes what we think it is. And each of us plays a role. Each of us is as powerful as the next. There is no hierarchy in oneness. There's no hierarchy in singleness. You can't have hierarchy in singleness. There's just one of it. We're on the cusp of massive change on this planet. People are focusing more on love. There's more kindness being born. People, the internet has brought people together. It's made the world so small. But it hasn't. We brought caring of people all around the world into people's front rooms. We brought people's plights into the front rooms of all people, pretty much. And people care about people. That's what I notice most about humanity. People care about people. If the shit ever hits the fan properly, earthquakes, whatever, there are people there. People gather together. They scrabble around. They try their best to dig people out, people they don't know, people they've never even met. They will go, they will put their own lives at risk to help the next person. That's humanity. That's love. That's what people do. It's beautiful. Love thy neighbour like thyself.
I love the story of when Dave and I were in South Africa on a stunning beach, overlooking, we could see Table Mountain, sun was setting, there's Robben Island out there, and Dave had been talking about the effing microplastics for about an hour at this point.
There was a lot of effing microplastics.
And I was listening, but also I was searching for sea glass, so I always had my attention on the sea glass. And then at some point I'd had enough, and I looked at him and I was like, are you still looking at the plastic? And you said you just looked up and you saw the sun setting, you saw Table Mountain, the colour, the ocean there with the sun. It just is like, whenever you see a photo of it, you know it's South Africa because it's incredible light.
You know it's South Africa Sea.
And I think we can see that it's so easy. Like they did a little experiment with my niece and nephew and said to them, tell me 3 terrible things you've seen today.
Tell me 3 beautiful things first.
Oh, did you? Yeah. And they struggled. And
only asked for 3 beautiful things they'd seen in one day.
She goes like, a wood, and you're like, where did you see that? And she goes, in my mind. And I think Archie just said a tree.
Went, a tree? Anything else, Arch? Bird? Anything else, Arch? No.
And then when you ask for 3 terrible things, they just listed them off. And for some reason, we seem to focus, and we know it with the news. And if you look at any of the kind of dramas that are on, it's so often like negative stuff. And I think that's something I really noticed after coming across the principles. Like you shift your focus. If you look for everything that's wrong, you'll find evidence for it with yourself, with the world. If you start looking for what's right, there's so much. There's actually a whole documentary made. A guy who, I think he produced and created Bruce Almighty and a lot of the big Jim Carrey films. And he created a documentary called I Am. And he had a biking accident and was in incredible pain. And what was wrong with him could kill him. He wasn't sure. And he said he thought, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to be remembered for? So he set about making a documentary, and it was to find out what's wrong with the world and what can we do about it. And at the end, he said he realised it was a documentary about what was right with the world. Because he interviewed people from different cultures, he sort of went into science, spirituality, religion, and he created this beautiful documentary. And I think I saw it so much on a personal level initially with the principles, like, wow, I get to have a more beautiful world when I start to look for beauty. And then now even more so, it's like, wow, I get to put that into the collective consciousness. I get to add beauty to the world more often. And like Dave was saying, we can become less lazy with our mind. It's so easy to go to the habitual bollocksy thoughts that we have. And I think now you start to see that what you're viewing is a reflection of your mind, not what you're looking at. It's a reflection of your own mind. And I've seen so much change in myself, because I used to be very judgmental and hold on to grudges, and whereas now I can see how easily I get lost in mind, how easily I can get kind of confused and not always be kind. And then I have more compassion for other people. So I don't see bad people, evil people. You see human beings that when we don't understand, we act out in ways. And it has allowed me to see so much more the innocence in misbehavior or negativity. And like, I know a lot of the people in the homeless shelter where we got to film in San Jose, there's a lady called Anita who was teaching, and she'd been homeless for years herself, and she'd come across the principles after she'd sort of got out of being homeless, but she wanted to share with the homeless community. And they all just said, she loves us. Anita loves us. And they had this beautiful community, and like a lot of them still lived on the street, but they were waking up to this and loving each other and helping each other out and not being so scared. And I don't know, I think there's so much more beauty than I ever realized. And I feel like the wake up is when I'm in negativity, when I'm in judgment, when I'm like, it's waking us up. You're misaligned, you're not seeing right, you've got really scratched up glasses on today. And I think we can sometimes feel like those feelings are a bad thing, or we judge them, but I'm like, no, they're just trying to wake us up. They're just trying to tell you you're totally off track in your mind. Come back to now. Quick break. We should have a 15-minute break. So it'll be 15 minutes, but 12:15 UK time.
If you're from the UK, it's 15 minutes.
And if you're from anywhere else, it's 15 minutes. Just in case.
I think when's the lunch break, darling?
Lunch today is...
Right, thank you.
Are you hungry?
No, I've just got to walk a dog.
Oh. Right.
See you in a minute.
Soon.